Republican colleague, Will Hurd, and they drove all the way across the country together to make it back in time for votes. And I think that he's someone who's willing to reach across the aisle, find common sense solutions, and has really valued our military and veterans. He served on the same committees that I serve on now, both Armed Services Committee and Veterans Affairs. He's a champion for climate change and many of the other issues that we're passionate about, and look forward to hearing his thoughts and views and welcoming him and many other presidential candidates throughout this campaign cycle here to William and Mary and to the 2nd District. So without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Beto.
To welcome this stranger from far West Texas to your school, to your community, to your Commonwealth, to Congresswoman Gloria. Thank you for your leadership and your service on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, standing up for everyone who's put their lives on the line for this country, making sure that she and he who has borne the battle is taken care of once they come back home to this community or any community in the United States of America. What I have heard from your constituents so far is that in the short time that you have served, you have made their priorities your priorities. You ensure that the constituent care, those veterans, those military retirees, of anyone who needs help in navigating the red tape or bureaucracy of their federal government has an ally and an advocate in you, and I'm grateful for the service that you provide to this community and for welcoming us here today. Let's hear it for Congresswoman Gloria. And Josh and Lisa and Cody. For helping to organize this, for introducing us, for inviting everybody out to come together, not for a person or a candidate or a party, but for our country at this defining moment of truth for the United States. The greatest set of challenges that we have ever faced. Millions unable to see a doctor, afford their prescriptions, too many dying in the wealthiest and most powerful country on the planet of diabetes. Though insulin was developed, sold to the Canadian government for $3 Canadian 97 years ago with no expectation of profit or patent or royalty. And right now, pharmaceutical corporations in this country are making millions, while too many, even those in some cases with insurance, cannot afford to take care of themselves in a country where one of the largest providers of mental health care services today is the county jail system, where those with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and clinical depression far too often are getting arrested on purpose to go to the only place they are guaranteed the help that they need at extraordinary cost to us in terms of the lives not fully lived. People are not well enough now to go to school, finish their education, work a job, pay their taxes, shoulder their fair share of the burden so it rests a little bit lighter on the rest of us. And we pay for every night that they are incarcerated because they have no place to go in a country that suffers a crisis in maternal mortality. 3 times as deadly for women of color. They rise against balance not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans, as human beings who have a common interest in the common good that we can do for one another. Universal, guaranteed, high-quality health care. It means every woman makes her own decisions about her own body. In a country right now that sees too many veterans taking their lives. 20 a day is the conservative official estimate every single day in this country. And 16 of those 20 were unable to get to a VA, to see a mental health care provider, or a provider of any kind, to get the care that they need to be able to continue their lives. We need to make sure that we pay any price, bear any burden for those who have served in this country's wars voluntarily. The greatest and most powerful military force that the world has ever known. Wars that have persisted, now in our 18th year in Afghanistan, our 28th year and counting in Iraq, through more than 6 successive presidential administrations, an authorization for the use of military force passed in 2001. It has metastasized to include our presence in Somalia, in Yemen, in Libya, in Syria, just some of the countries right now where our fellow Americans are deployed, where their lives are on the line, where far too often they lose their lives and are forced to take the lives of others in your name and mine. Let's make sure that we're not only prepared to take care of them when they come back home and fill every one of the 45,000 vacancies in the VA today. Let's also make sure that we stop going to war everywhere around the world. Those who are willing to carry out the foreign policy in the United States of America, that we bring these wars to a conclusion and bring these service members back home, to their families, to their communities, and to their country. In a country, in a nation that is defined not by race or ethnicity, as so many other nations and countries around the world are, but instead is founded on the principle that we are all created equal, to equal opportunity, and hopefully equal outcomes when it comes to health and participation in the economy and education. And yet, that idea is justifiably seen as a lie by too many who experience unequal opportunity and outcomes and experiences in this country. Let's make sure that every single one of us can live and contribute to our full potential. Let's acknowledge a criminal justice system that keeps locked up more people per capita in this country than any other country in the world. This of people of color arrested after they were stopped and frisked, primarily because of the color of their skin. We know that marijuana use, for example, in America is consistent among every race and ethnicity and country of national origin. But more likely than not, those arrested will be men and women of color doing time, and after release, forced to check a box on every employment application form, making it less likely that they get the job, no longer qualifying for federally sponsored student loans, which means that they cannot attend William and Mary or any institution of higher learning. Their options narrowed, their future constrained by policies that we refuse to look squarely in the face and change. So not only must we end the federal prohibition of marijuana, we must also expunge the arrest records of everyone If you want to see what's wrong with our criminal justice system, think of this. More than 70,000 of our fellow Americans died of drug overdose deaths last year. Many of them from opioids, and whether they got them from a pharmacist or bought heroin on the street, in the vast majority of those cases, it began with a legally prescribed prescription. And yet Purdue Pharma and those who are responsible for the crisis that we find throughout this country, in almost every community today, who marketed those opioids as a miracle painkiller that would not be addictive, though it turns out it looks like they knew something quite to the contrary. Not a single one of them spent a single night in a single jail or paid any meaningful price for the devastation that they have wrought on this country. I want to make sure that there is accountability for the legal cost of what we're doing to one another. I want to make sure that there's not a profit incentive to make money off of those who are behind bars. We should end for-profit prisons. They also understand that these disparities in opportunities and outcomes transcend criminal justice. They're included in our healthcare system, in our system of public education, where at 5 years old, in a kindergarten classroom, if you are a child of color, you're 5 times as likely to be disciplined, or suspended, or expelled as a white child. When they talk about the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline, know that it does not begin in high school, that it begins in kindergarten. So, not only, especially in Virginia, must we pay our public school educators what they are worth so that they're not only because some of those kids in that kindergarten classroom are going to be 10 months back in reading comprehension, 12 months back in math on day 1 of kindergarten, must we move back education to pre-K universally for every child in this country? Improvement in the classrooms, we need to make sure that we hire and that we retain more teachers who look like the students in front of us. This country, composed of the people of the planet, some who can trace their family tree back 10,000 years, their families have been here ever since. Others, kidnapped in West Africa, brought here in bondage, literally built the wealth of this commonwealth, of this country, though they had no opportunity or expectation to share in the fruits of their labor, compounded by the successive generations denied the ability to receive access to capital or home loans because of redlining, or the ability to vote and participate in their democracy as well as their economy. We have a country also comprised of asylum seekers and refugees and immigrants from every part of the world. In the 19th century, it was the O'Rourke's fleeing Ireland, perhaps famine, coming to the one country that would accept them, where they could find a home. Today, Central Americans leaving some of the deadliest places on the planet. What else would compel you to scoop up your baby girl, 6 months old, 6 years old, 12 years old, and travel 2,000 miles on foot? Maybe, if you're lucky, atop, not inside a train known as La Bestia or the Beast, to show up seeking salvation and refuge and safety. And instead of finding any of that from this country of refugees and asylum seekers and immigrants, your child is taken from your arms by force. You are sent back to the very country from which you fled in the first place. That child is caged, then turned over to some bureaucracy, then maybe a foster care home, and God knows what state, with no hope or prospect of seeing each other again. That's what this country is doing right now. And do not satisfy yourselves that though this is a decision of one man from one party, that we can lay it at his feet or the feet of others. In a democracy, which we still are, I hope, we are the government, and the government is the people. And so the responsibility to change this is on us, to ensure that benefit, beginning by freeing every dreamer from any fear of deportation. And not doing that at the price of deporting their parents, the original dreamers, or at the cost of a 2,000-mile, 30-foot-high, $30 billion wall, which will not be built on the international boundary. We can do that, and what I have learned by listening to people is there's broad agreement on these goals, our desire to live our values, to live up to the potential and promise of this country, to form that more perfect union. So whether it's criminal justice, or education, or economy, or immigration, or the most important challenge that we face, this climate, which as it continues to warm, produces more disasters that are not natural in nature, they are human living. My home state of Texas. Those of you from Houston experienced this firsthand. 58 inches of rain dropped from the sky, which is the landfall record for as long as we've been keeping them in North America, and was, by the way, the third 500-year flood in just the last 5 years. Folks had not finished rebuilding their homes from the last one before the next one hit. And the cost was measured not just in property damage, not just in lives lost, but the knowledge, if we will listen to those scientists, that Harvey will appear like a drop in the bucket compared to what comes next if we cannot change course while we still have time. The droughts through which our farmers are taking the wildfires in California, the exodus of those countries that can no longer grow their own food. All of this will get exponentially worse over time, even as we live in the midst of the consequences of the generations that preceded ours. So if we have the political will, this will not be a function of the Democratic Party or any party at all. It's got to be all of us, given the fact that all of us and the generations that follow all of us will be impacted. If we can free ourselves from a dependence on fossil fuel, if we can invest more in the renewable energies of solar and wind power, of the huge fast growing jobs in the United States of America. If we can listen to rural America, to those farmers who grow the food that we eat, the fiber that clothes us, not just here in the United States, but for the world over, who, as well as you, want to do their part, they ask to be allowed to plant cover crops. Cover that in the farm bill so they can make a profit, grabbing carbon out of the air, make sure that they have access to the latest technologies, precision tilling, for example, so they don't disturb the carbon that's already in the soil. If every one of us does everything that we can, if we set the example and take the lead, we can return to our rightful role as the indispensable nation on this planet, convene the other powers of the earth together to solve an otherwise intractable problem, beginning by signing the United States back up to the Paris Climate Agreement. At this moment, within these 10 years that we have left to us, that we've done everything that we can, and that those people of the future, my kids, looking back on us 30, 50 years from today, will not find us wanting. They'll be proud of us. They will know that we marshaled not just the resources, but the political will to do what was necessary. For all of those reasons, for every challenge that we want to meet, with the knowledge that will only be possible if we do it together at this historic moment of division, and polarization, and hyper-partisanship, that we don't regard one another as Republicans or Democrats, that we care not to whom you pray, or who you love, or how many generations you've been in this country, or whether you just got here yesterday. All that matters generations to admire and to be proud of. For those reasons, I'm running to serve you as the next president of the United States. We also came to listen to and learn from you. I have no hope of earning your vote, which I humbly ask for today, or being able to serve you in that highest position of public trust if I have not first heard you, listened to you, and learned from our exchange. So Cynthia Cano, who's back in the back right side of the room, has a microphone. If you raise your hand, she will try to bring as many people into the conversation as possible. It is her attention that you want to get because she has the mic. Cynthia?
All right, here we go. Here's our first question. Hi, my name is Maya Congress. I'm a senior physical science major at University of Oregon. I was wondering, because you already have an opportunity to speak about nurturing worship to expand upon this and conference days for those who continue to have that access to make basis for their own lives.
Thank you for being here. So, in my home state of Texas, fellow Texans know this. Over the last 5 or 6 years, the state legislature, the governors that we've had, have successfully shut down more than a quarter of our family planning clinics. So in El Paso, we used to have a Planned Parenthood. We did not for a very long time. If those of you who are from Texas or know your Texas geography understand that to get to Austin, Texas, it is an 8-hour drive. We're closer to 3 or 4 other state capitals than we are to our own. So not only does that mean that women in my hometown do not have access to a legal, safe abortion, they also didn't have access to cervical cancer screening or family planning help, or the ability to see any medical provider at all in a state that has not yet followed your state's lead and expanded Medicaid. So it should be no surprise that we have lost so many women in Texas, and so many women of color especially. We made it so much harder for them to get health care. So when we talk about reproductive rights and a woman's right to choose, we want to make sure that we're also talking about women's health care and the health care of their families and the health care of this country. I think that might be the common ground upon which we can find the agreement for the funding, for the legislation, and for the Senate as they seek to confirm our nominees to the Supreme Court, who will ensure that Roe v. Wade, decided in 1973, remains the law of the land.
And recently I spoke with a 21-year-old who came to the United States on the beach from Honduras. And she said that she agreed with the Republican stance that drugs were a serious problem coming over the border, but that for people from Central America, they don't see another plausible way to get here and out of the dangerous situations that they live in. What would you say to those children that are trying to just have a better life, and how do you see working on both the drug problem and helping people come to a safer place?
Thank you for the question and for spending the time listening to somebody who's experienced what we were describing earlier. To put it in perspective, last year there were 400,000 apprehensions at our border with Mexico. In the second year of the George W. Bush administration, there were 1.6 million apprehensions at our border. So if there's a crisis, then certainly there might be a crisis in those families, or in Guatemala, El Salvador, or Honduras, some of which are the deadliest places in the world today. But we do not have a crisis in our country. We don't have a crisis in resources. We do not have a crisis in security. My hometown, El Paso, to which so many of these asylum seekers come, is one of, and it has been for the last 20 years, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. Their presence, I would argue makes us successful, makes us strong, and makes us more secure. It's not despite the fact that a quarter of those with whom I live were born somewhere else. It is because that they chose us that we are doing so well as a community, as a state, as a country. So I want to dispel any myths that somehow causes harm to us to follow our own asylum laws that are on the book. That I would argue that this president is breaking right now when those Hondurans come to our country and try to legally petition for asylum at the port of entry, an international bridge that connects El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. They are turned back where they can set foot in the United States. And if you have no money, just travel 2,000 miles, your 6-year-old daughter is sick, what would you do? They attempt to cross in between the ports of entry, not to evade Border Patrol. They turn themselves in. In the parlance of the Border Patrol, they arrest themselves. So the first part of my answer to your question is let's follow our laws, our moral commitment. Let's understand not only is it doing the right thing for those who have no other place to go, but that the ultimate beneficiary is not that refugee, it is all of us. The great things that they're going to do over the course of their life will happen here in this country. Second, we can meet them with open arms by following our laws, with a 2,000-mile wall, with cages. But if we are only addressing the problem after they have traveled 2,000 miles, perhaps it is too late. This president wants to cut $500 million, which is all we spend in the Northern Triangle of Central America, down to zero. You tell me if you think that's going to make things better or worse, cause fewer or more people to flee those countries. $500 million, a fraction of the $30 billion he wants to spend on the wall. I say double at a minimum that $500 million. Focus it on violence reduction so that no child, no parent has to make that god-awful decision to make that journey in the first place. And then you mentioned drugs. We could add to that human trafficking. There are real threats at the U.S.-Mexico border. We should be vigilant against them, be able to focus on those real threats to our country and not on an issue that is not a problem. Human beings going to the only place that they can now. So invest in solutions at the source of the problem, not in walls, not in cages, not in militarization. Thanks for asking the question.
Hello, I am Christian Walker. I'm going to be a government major. I'm a freshman this year, so I haven't declared yet. Regardless, you said something earlier about how Virginia has expanded Medicaid and Texas hasn't, and I think that really gets to my issue that I'm very passionate about. What are you going to be doing, especially during this next year, to help out with down ballot races in Virginia, but also in the governor's race in Louisiana, the governor's race in Mississippi, and the governor's race in Kentucky?
I began my day bright and early in Virginia Beach, running along the shore with a Commonwealth Senate candidate, Missy Carter Smazel. Now, her candidacy, your willingness to participate in 2019, this deciding, defining year for the Commonwealth, is essential because, as you know, the power in the Senate hangs in the balance of that election. I then met Jay Jones a little bit later in the day, who was just elected, I believe, in 2017, one of those deciding votes in expanding Medicaid in this Commonwealth. I told him he's got my full support, not just for his re-election, but for others who are trying to stand up, not just for expanding Medicaid and ensuring that it stays expanded. But as Congressman Luria said, we are something like 12 years and 5 hours from a massacre that claimed the lives of 32 people, and this Commonwealth still does not have universal background checks. If we're going to make sure that there's a we're going to every single one of these candidates. And I'll tell you this. In our 254 county travels in Texas, not only do I get to see every single part of the state, make sure that no one felt written off or taken for granted or forgotten or left behind, but we were there to help those at different levels of the ballot. Though we finished 2.6% behind Ted Cruz, we were able to get more votes than any Democrat in the history of the state of Texas. private, the Republican governor, one of the most conservative governors in the United States, and also voted for us. And we never trimmed our sails on the issues of gun violence, reproductive health care, universal health care, immigration reform, or climate change. Bringing the same bold, progressive message, no matter how red or how blue. 2 new members of Congress in Texas, in part because of the movement that we got to be a part of. Colin Allred and Lizzie Panel Fletcher, both Democrats serving in long-held Republican seats. We were able to change the composition of our state legislature, which beyond refusing to expand Medicaid, is responsible for the racial and ethnic gerrymandering of our state that left us ranked 50th in voter turnout in the country. Y además, in addition, 17 African American women elected to judicial positions in Houston, Texas. Of criminal justice, in the largest city in our state, the most diverse city in the United States of America. So the movement we got to be a part of, focusing on people, not on PACs, going to everywhere, welcoming everyone. We did not win, we helped a lot of other people win. And one of the reasons that we're the first presidential contender to be in Virginia during this election cycle is because we understand that 2019 is so critical to you. So making sure that we do our part, that you do your part, then in 2020, we're going to be celebrating not just our nomination, but the victories that you enjoyed in 2019. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maggie Herndon. I'm a history major here at William & Mary. You've already pledged to reject corporate PAC money. Given the corrupting influence that fossil fuel executives and their lobbyists have exerted on our politics and the role that they've played in blocking climate action, will you pledge today to not knowingly accept any campaign contributions over $200 from the PACs, executives, or lobbyists of fossil fuel companies by signing the No Fossil Fuel Money pledge?
Yeah. Thank you, Maggie, for being here for the question. As you asked the question, you pointed out that we don't take PAC money. We didn't take PAC money during our Senate campaign. And I'm not taking PAC money since, I believe, 2014 as a member of Congress. All people, all the time. You asked about the challenge that we face in reducing our dependence, ultimately eliminating it from fossil fuels, including oil and gas. You've got my commitment to doing that. But you asked to single out the employees of one industry. Now, not only do we not take PAC money, we don't take any lobbyist money either, so the answer is yes, we won't take any lobbyist money from oil and gas corporations. But if you work in the oil fields, if you answer the phones at the office, if you're one of my fellow Texans and one of our state's largest employers, I'm not going to single you out from being unable to participate in our democracy. Just like I won't if you work for a defense contractor or a pharmaceutical corporation, or any other industry that poses a challenge or a problem from this country. At this moment of division, if we exacerbate the divides, if we fail to include people into the solution, including those who work in oil and gas companies, if we fail to include coal miners in our transition from carbon-based energy sources, then we have written off their families and their communities. So you've got my commitment on the end goal. You've got my commitment not to take back money. You've got my commitment not to accept any participation from lobbyists. But other than that, I want to bring every single American together around this issue. Thank you for asking the question. What's that?
Will you be taking money from fossil fuel industry CEOs?
I'm not planning to.
Will you sign that?
CEOs in there, I'm absolutely happy.
Okay, this is going to be our last question right now.
So after President Trump's Representative Omar last week, what message or strategies do you have for other Muslims and other marginalized groups after Trump's taking the microscope?
Yeah, thank you. In February of 17, we were at LBJ Elementary in El Paso Public School, third grade classroom. Mexican-American girl asks, why does the president not like me? She's internalized his comments that Mexican immigrants are rapists and criminals. I told that story in Houston, Texas, and the parents of another third grader who happens to be Muslim said that their daughter asked the same thing, wondered if she was in the right country, though she was born here, and her parents were born here. Though that wouldn't matter to me. She doesn't think that she's in the right place. What does that do to that girl's head, to her conception of herself, what she thinks is possible here in the United States of America going forward? The day that he signed the executive order attempting to ban Muslim travel to the United States, the mosque in Victoria, Texas, was burned down to the ground. He called asylum seekers animals and an infestation. Now, I might expect someone in the Third Reich to refer to another human being as an infestation or a pest or less than human. I might expect someone had enough time in our history to try to ban the travel of all people of one religion to their country, especially one like ours that is comprised of people from every tradition of faith and walk of life. You do not get kids in cages unless you have a president who sets the tone with his words and his rhetoric. You don't get a rise in hate crimes 3 out of the last 3 years unless you have a president who encourages it, who calls Klansmen and Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. And then last week on Friday, he does not retweet, he tweets out of his own creation, out of his team, a video that conflates a member of Congress who happens to be Muslim, Representative Ilhan Omar, a speech that she gave with the terrorist attacks of 9/11 on the World Trade Center, ending with the line, "We will never forget." He's trying to incite hatred, Islamophobia, and I would argue violence against her and other Muslims in this country. This is the test of all tests for us. It's not just that he's partisan, it's not just that he is divisive. He's hateful, he is racist, he's encouraging the worst tendencies amongst our fellow Americans. And once we see that nation and call it out for what it is, it will continue. Unless we defeat him in November of 2020, it will continue. Unless we offer a compelling, profoundly powerful alternative to hatred and division and fear and anger, it will continue. And that's why this campaign is so focused on everyone, every single one of us, trying to bring this country together to meet these challenges. Not buying in to the fear, to the smallness, to the pettiness. We want to distinguish ourselves by our ambitions, our aspirations, the work, the creativity, the service and sacrifice that we're willing to bring to bear in order to achieve them. That is our challenge, that is our opportunity. If successful, we will more than at any other time in our history live up to our promise as Americans. And that's what I'm intent upon doing going forward. Thank you. Thank you.